Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a sharp game to share with you from the semifinals of Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Las Vegas. This was the deciding tiebreak game between Fabiano Caruana on the white end and Hans Niemann. So time controls 10 plus 10. This is start position 331, where the A pawns and H pawns are unprotected. However, none of these pawns can be targeted in just one move. Takes a little bit more work. The first move of this game, f4. A couple notes here. Computer has its eye on knight f3, keeping the pawn on home base, and also c4 with d3 and developing the bishop along this diagonal. Caruana's approach, f4, and a quick bishop f2 to pinpoint that weak pawn. Convenient enough to address that threat. Knight develops, follow up c4, and now some security for the knight. We have d6 watching over, c5, bishop ready to play. Follow up g3, knight f6. The knight has a jump in mind. g4 in particular, bothering the bishop, h2. Caruana rules this out, plays h3. One of the moves the computer's looking at is c5 to grant this bishop another square. So after c5 and a capture, for instance, bishop very flexible here, many more options. Knight g4 won't be hitting with a fork anymore. All right, Caruana keeps the knight out of g4, h3 it is. Now this is a few pawn moves already on this wing. And after bishop d7, the forming of this battery, how to address the threat on h3. In the game, we have g4, another pawn advance, g-pawn taking a second step. You could also go with bishop g2. The evaluation is about the same with these. In the game, it's g4, follow-up castles. Now, let's just pause for a moment. We're 8 moves in, and the evaluation here is reading about -1. So kind of right out of the gates, it's not really a fan of how white has played the opening with this arrangement. Here's something that sticks out to me. The king. Where will it ever feel safe with these pawn moves? Going in this direction, not comfortable. Going in this direction, ending up on c1. You're facing a bishop that's already on this diagonal, a rook that can spring to life, b2 can be sensitive in a blink. It's already a bit uncomfortable for white. Look at the development here for black. Couple knights out, just one piece for white. All right, we continue with d3, h5. Let me throw this one to you as a pop quiz. How would you respond here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, in the game, g5 is played. At the top, the computer says exchange on h5, target the knight. Now, with such a line, it says you could simply react to this pressure, knight f6. But here's another move it has its eye on. It's looking at knight a4. And in response to bishop captures knight, it says don't even take time out to recapture. And instead, play b5. What a sharp line this one is. It's really, a line like this really draws our attention to this point b2. 2 attackers, a third, ready to join in on the fun after we see a capture. There wouldn't be time for white to rescue the bishop. This is very difficult to handle. b3 gives up c3, a fork. Position could quickly collapse for white. Trying d4, there's c5, e3, bishop f5. Big trouble for white. Now, with such a line, something that I reflected on were earlier moves in the game. So Caruana's decision to play f4 and bishop f2 in particular. What was Niemann's response? Knight b6. So what did I question exactly? Who really benefits with the inclusion of these two moves? It would seem to be black. Now, in general, this b6 square isn't the brightest for a knight. However, with this arrangement and the bishop already on this main diagonal, it is only ever a blink away from being what I think at least is a top piece in the position. It can be very disruptive. Okay, how it plays out in this game. In response to h5, we see the g file closed, the knight under attack. However, it does not yet have to move. Its battery, the bishop's eyes, have opened up. Black swipes a pawn, targets the rook. In response to this, we see rook e1. If you capture the bishop, the queen, very active piece, gets to recapture with tempo. And after the rook moves, this knight gets to respond in the forward. Knight g4 is available. Okay, in this game, we see rook e1. Note now, the knight does not have a forward response. Knight g4 hangs the bishop. So the knight must hit the reverse button. e8 it is. Only now do we see knight captures bishop, queen captures knight, and we get some more development in knight b3. c5, multi-purpose, forget about the d4 square, and a new square has opened up for the knight. Bishop f3, queen d7, she was going to be kicked anyway. Rook h1 right around the corner. There we go, rook h1, knight a4, queen c2, and from here black plays knight c7. Computer says play b5 straight away. All right, knight c7 in this game. And one more pop quiz. What move would you play here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, computer says at the top, white must go for the following, a sacrifice on h5, and continue with d4. This is some deep stuff. Queen's eyes have opened up. We're looking next at a capture, queen h7 idea. It says this is still around -7. Okay, that's a very sharp continuation, no doubt. How are things different in this game if instead of knight c7, b5 is played? Do know the sacrifice is no longer working. A difference, the knight's still on e8, it can provide some defense over the king's side. So for instance, after bishop captures h5 in response to b5, you can take, and in the case of d4, there is knight g7. These hold, this move here holds the light squares really well. All right, in this game, we see knight c7. A quick little update here. This is move 14. The times, Caruana has about 3 minutes. Niemann has about 8. So 5-minute advantage, and it stays about a 5-minute advantage throughout the rest of this game. So really putting a lot of pressure on Caruana on the clock there. All right, in this one, we see knight a5, knight e6, trying to play b5 now. c6 square weakened, so black's approach, first knight e6 with tempo. That point is secure, and now the activation of the piece that is not yet doing anything. Rook on f to c8, covering c6, and black is finally ready to go with this thematic break. B pawn challenging the c pawn. This is almost a bit too easy for black to play at this point. These moves all flow very naturally. The king on g8. I failed to mention this with the inclusion of, with the response to h5, g5, with the g file shut. This king is feeling especially safe. And there remains a question mark over the white king. There is not a single square where it feels safe. Pick it up in your hand. If that could be one move in the game, as white, where you pick up the king and put him wherever you want on the board. He's still never going to feel safe. Black just needs a couple key pawn breaks, and this position is going to be cracked open. White will never feel comfortable. All right, play from here. King e2, b5, b file opened up, no time to take the knight. Rook captures b with check, queen will fall. Knight c4, challenged right away. Secure, but questioned with d5. From here, we have knight captures knight. If the knight drops into e5, can swipe that knight. It says you could take this pawn or even play c4, opening up the position, opening lines. Just want to get at that king. Let's exchange as many pawns as possible. That should be a pretty clean mentality to have in this position where your king is safe, white's king is not. All right. No knight e5 jump. We have the knight exchange, rook recapture, bishop g3, knight g7. One more little update here with the clock times. We're at move 22. This is a 49 move game. Move 22 here, knight g7. Clock times about 1 minute for Caruana. He's pretty much living off of the increment for the rest of the game. And Niemann has 6 minutes. At some point, he even banked some time and got as far up as 7 minutes. Maintained about a 5-minute advantage for the rest of this game. So tough times ahead here for white. The try, king f1, knight improvement, e5 break, pawn takes, bishop takes, queen d2. The moves that white is going with here, that's just how it is at this point in the game. They're sort of like passing moves, whereas black is able to incrementally improve his position. So pinpoints e3, the response e4, and the knight falls back to g7. The computer says you could already dive in here and pitch a pawn and play this opposite color bishop position where your bishop is effective and white's is not. So the response in this one, knight g7, he has an eye on simply maneuvering the knight, not giving up any material. And let's see the approach. Small, steady improvements for black. Not much to really comment about white's moves. There just isn't a good move at this stage. Everything is really under control by black. Knight improvement, pawn drops. There's only one piece that is not playing for black. This one. But now, in a way, it is close to being a contributor. This square has opened up. The h-pawn is ready to advance. If picked off, there you go. There's a file to work with. And if not, there will be an excellent pivot square on g3. Tough days ahead. Black pieces swarming the white king, trying to hide in the corner, but it's just not safe, however you slice it. From here, rook c2, h4, rook g4, bishop e3, bishop takes pawn, open file to work with. King g2, an exchange sacrifice. There isn't a lot of calculation that really needs to go into such a sacrifice. It's very one-sided. This bishop is not playing. Rather than look at this one as a knight versus rook imbalance, with this bishop ineffective, it's really two minor pieces versus a rook. All pieces here are attacking the white king. So let's see what the try is after knight f3, rook h3. Follow up, knight goes back to g5. It says you could go in for knight g1. That would be a cute move, landing a fork there. All right, the knight falls back, has its eye in this excellent square, f4, trying to track down the queen. Queen g4, rook f4, and eventually we're going to see the exchange given back, and white is simply busted on these dark squares. Rook h3, queen check, king in the corner, rook exchange, and after queen g3, white resigns. Going to lose the bishop. There's also a mate threat on h2. It's reading a checkmate in 6. If you're curious, that's how bad it is here. This is devastating. So if it was 2 computers playing out straight to checkmate, this is what it might look like. Queen e2 to defend the mate. Bishop falls, bishop e3, you have to give up the queen now. And soon enough, we will have checkmate. Pick your favorite way to give mate there, queen or rook. Okay, fairly one-sided game, I must say. This one was busted after 22 moves. 8 moves in, however, just going all the way back here. 8 moves in, it was already very comfortable for black. And again, big question mark over that white king. Where's the safe square? Never really found a safe home because there just wasn't one after these early pawn moves. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one? Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.